And Mariam, would you agree with me? I'm sorry to get so informal with the first name basis, but it's the purpose of keeping the flow up here. That nuclear is cool. I mean, you have this portfolio at the most critical windows. We have COP27 taking place in Egypt and Sharm el-Sheikh, and then COP28 coming to Abu Dhabi in the year after. That this is a cool element to have in your mix, but a vital one on the path to net zero, which most people don't even understand. Why is nuclear so important in terms of the portfolio?
Thanks, John. Thank you for all being here with us today. First of all, let's look at the context of energy sector. The energy sector contributes to 2/3 of greenhouse gas emissions. So it is the biggest sector that we have to transition. If we are to achieve net zero by 2050, this is the sector we have to focus on, and this transition must be just and it must be fast. It is really important that we look at the diversification portfolio and looking at solutions that are at hand to us today. And nuclear is one of them. We need to look at energy sources that are clean, that are affordable, and that are reliable. And because of that, nuclear ticks all the boxes. And what we must do in order to reach net zero by 2050, we have to take a two-pronged approach, and this is what we're doing in the UAE. We have to ramp up clean and renewables, and at the same time, decarbonize our hydrocarbons. And this, ladies and gentlemen, takes time and it takes money. We know that because we are in this journey. 16 years ago, it started here in the UAE. We ratified and signed the Paris Agreement. We set up Masdar City to be the nucleus of developing clean and renewable energy. IRENA is hosted here in Abu Dhabi. And going through this journey, announcing the net zero by 2050 before COP26 was a natural step for us. Having COP27 and COP28 in the region is such a unique opportunity for this region to showcase our achievements. And we can say, and I said time and money, so 16 years, we've invested about $40 billion in the UAE. We've invested $17 billion outside of the UAE in over 70 countries. And today we're proud to say the UAE is operating 3 of the largest solar parks in the world at the lowest cost. We have the nuclear plant that is up and running, and once it's at full capacity, it'll be covering 25% of our energy needs. We also have the first industrial green hydrogen plant as well. So we like to see us as trendsetters, and we also understand that this is a transition that takes time and money. We need to look at all solutions at hand, and nuclear is one of them.
Okay, good. I'm going to ask our 2 other panelists to bring those mics close to you because they're very directional, but a quick follow-up to Her Excellency. In that spirit of COP28, and I'd like to tie in this change in the last month after the Russia-Ukraine conflict that we've seen, the impact on energy security as part of the narrative. A month ago, Ursula von der Leyen went to Senegal, and we had at ADIPEC here in November, I chaired the panel with her. They've made a huge natural gas discovery. Well, the European Union message a month ago is we don't want you to invest in your hydrocarbons in natural gas. Then the European Union said, well, natural gas and nuclear is 2 key components of the energy transition here. And also this narrative of the access, it's extraordinary in the 21st century. 750 million people don't have access to electricity on a daily basis. Over 2 billion don't have access to it regularly, but 600 million of them are in Africa themselves. So what influence do you think Egypt and the UAE will have on that narrative of also providing access? And yes, that was a wake-up call in Russia and Ukraine. Are people thinking differently? What are you hearing?
So what your point is a lot of people don't realize, when you talk about availability, that's one thing, but access is another thing. And what we're experiencing right now, John, is as if we've switched off oil and gas. What's happening now? Countries are coming to us and saying, no, produce more, do more, because we're not ready yet. Our systems are not ready yet. And this is why I said we need to take this 2-pronged approach. We need to ramp up our clean and renewables, decarbonize, and once it's ready, we then switch and become less dependent on hydrocarbons. Our systems are not ready yet, and what we're experiencing right now is the reality. It's a reality check for us. So we're also understanding that accessibility of energy is yet another aspect. So if you set up a solar park or a wind park, you need to think of how you bring that to the consumers. So when I talk about the systems are not ready yet, we're talking about, so technologies are available, but the distribution, the storage, these are all components that still must be invested in, and invested in heavily.
Good. In my opening comments, Bill, I said that we see a lot of imitation now in the region with Egypt working with Russia, same thing with Turkey, building reactors as we speak. But there's another component here that most in the audience wouldn't know, is that there's a lot of innovation in the sector at the same time. So small modular reactors, does it make nuclear a component that's going to accelerate in terms of ramping up gigawatt capacity in different parts of the world? Do you want to address both?
Sure, John. First, the answer to your question is I think so. But let me take a step back and just appreciate the opportunity to be back in UAE after several years and seeing the great progress on the nuclear program. Extraordinarily impressive, a lot to be proud of here. And I think that the issue that you spoke of a few minutes ago, this issue of access, is extraordinarily important. What we see around the world is a deficit in energy. And what many experts and NGO groups try to say is that our big problem for the environment is we use too much, that we waste too much, and we have to work with less. I think the answer is actually the opposite. I think we have to make more energy available to more people less expensively than we do today. And one way of doing that,
as clean as possible.
As clean as possible. Yeah. But one way of doing that is the use of advanced nuclear technology. You spoke of these small modular reactors, microreactors, Generation 4 reactors. These technologies can be, if they're successful, remains to be proven, but if successful, they will be made available to people around the world, extraordinarily safe, proliferation resistant, and cost effective. And if this is successful, we'll be able to combine these small reactors with renewable capacity, and we'll be able to help those 750 million people who don't have electricity, and the 2 billion that don't have clean water, and all the other people who want to save the environment without sacrificing civilization in the process. So that's what I think nuclear can bring to the table. Interesting.
And very quickly, what did we learn from Fukushima from your view? Because you've had your head in this industry for 3 decades. And also, the memory of Chernobyl. So let's cover Fukushima, and because of climate change and the rising sea levels, do you have to be more resilient, think completely out of the box how we build new facilities?
We've learned a lot from Fukushima, and the character of the nuclear sector is to learn from experience. And Fukushima was a big experience, and we did learn that plants have to be more resilient. The ability to recover from even the most unexpected disasters has to be built into every plant. And if you tour Baraka, you will see those kinds of features in that plant. It's prepared for the unexpected. It's prepared to recover from the unforeseen, and that's extraordinarily important. We've learned that lesson. The new technologies are so safe that a Fukushima-type accident would be physically impossible with these new technologies. And that's the answer for the future, to make nuclear more accessible to more people without raising concerns about nuclear safety.
Good. Mohamed Al Hammadi, I have to thank you again because you let me into the red zone when you finished your construction, and then I got a chance to go first into the first reactor when it went commercial, and now you have the second one up on the table. Address, if you can link this back to His Highness Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed, who said is important in terms of the industrial policy and also very important for future development of the youth. When I went down there, I saw Emirati women working in the control rooms. They said, I could not be part of this strategy. I had to jump in because I thought it was so important to our future. What is the component of that in your planning and development of talent here, but also how does it fit into the 2050 industrial strategy in terms of lower cost energy?
Thank you, John. That's a great question. if I can take just one step back, the nuclear industry for the UAE, it's a new. So looking back a decade ago, the vision was, how do we create sustainable and secure electricity mix? I remember His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed in 2006 had a clear vision of we need solutions that's sustainable and that's also provide energy security. Fast forward to today, over a decade, as Your Excellency mentioned, we have 80% of renewable installed in the region here in the UAE. We've managed also to switch on the first 2 nuclear reactors, and we have 2 more also to go. So by 2025, we'll have 25% of our electricity from the nuclear energy. And going back to your point now, specifically on industrialization, His Highness Sheikh Mansour just mentioned that industry will be a key pillar for the success of the UAE. And if I may link this back to 2015, and this World Government Summit, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, he said, we would like to celebrate the export of the last barrel of oil. And that vision is there and will be accomplished through secure sources of energy and sustainable sources of energy. And nuclear will be a key pillar of that. And other sources of energy. As my colleague mentioned, we will need all kind of form of energies to be able to grow and prosper as a nation, and nuclear provide that. Today, ENEC provides over 17 billion dirhams worth of contracts to local companies. We managed to employ and develop very highly talented workforce. I'm very proud to say we have 70% of our employees are under the age of 35 years old, very young generation. And one thing also I'm very, very proud of, Unit 2, when got to operate and became operational, a young engineer, her name is Hind Naqbi from Dibal Hassan, she led the team. She learned from Unit 1, so at Unit 2 she went and led the team to switch on that unit. And this is something in a 10 years span, it doesn't happen anywhere in the world. It happens in the UAE because we have the leadership, the right vision, that carry vision to execution and see it all the way through to the highest standards. And that's something we should be proud of as each Emirati in this room.
Your Excellency Mariam, as a woman, one of the youngest members of the cabinet and driving a very key portfolio, right, at a critical window in the climate debate and action plan, how do you see it when you went down to Baraka yourself? I was actually very surprised as how young this workforce was, but it was also, they're very passionate about it. They were like, I just couldn't see myself left out of this project.
To be honest with you, when I was there and I saw, I hadn't had those facts. So I was on the way there, and when I landed and, seeing the units, very impressive facility, by the way. They're very conscious as well on the environmental aspect, so looking at the ecology around it, the corals, the mangroves and everything. So I was very impressed by that. But the team that then came up to me, I was like, wow, these are all young, a lot of them women, young engineers. I'm a mechanical engineer by education. I don't consider myself that anymore. I feel I'm outdated now. But
it's good to have that in your toolbox, to have that knowledge, let's put it that way, right?
So impressed by their energy, their enthusiasm, and they're so proud. And this you felt it all the way when they were showing me around the facility. And, Mohammed was just in the background, letting them lead. And, they presented to me, they showed me, and I saw the heart of the unit. And they showed me where their desks are, what they do on a daily basis. I was so impressed by this. And I really see it's a game changer, what's happening here on the nuclear front. And I want you all to understand two things. The advancement in technology and innovation in this sector has gone so far that when you think of the safety aspects, it's exceeded things you can't even imagine. This is number one. Number two, you need to also understand, for us to be able to do this energy transition, we need baseline energy. So where do you get this from? How do you build your equipment that you need for solar? How do you build the equipment and the facilities for wind? How do you build the equipment, gadgets, facilities for all the other clean and renewable facilities? This is why we're talking always about a transition, a just and fast transition. Reality and a pragmatic approach is needed here.
Good. I'm going to come back to Mohamed in a similar theme, but I wanted to bring Bill back into the conversation. When this was first put on the table, it was, oh my gosh, we have a major player in the Middle East building a nuclear reactor. How are we going to have the safeguards? This makes the risk in the region even worse, Complications with Iran, of course. And then we see Saudi Arabia has the aspirations. I talked about Egypt and Turkey. Is the Middle East safer, in your view, with these facilities here or not? Or is that risk discussion now off the table with the UAE setting the example?
I think, John, that I hesitate to ever speak about regions as being homogenous. I don't talk about the Middle East any more than I talk about Africa or I talk about Asia.
Right.
Every situation is different, and UAE is different. UAE is not like some of the other countries that have stability issues. UAE, and I've given speeches about this in the past. I've always been so amazed by the story of UAE, and I wish more people around the world knew the story. That if you go back to when you and I were in grade school, there wasn't really much.
That was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. It wasn't that long ago. There wasn't much here. This was mostly a desert area. There wasn't a lot going on here. And today, we're seeing metropolises of the world. Some of the world's great cities are here now within a generation or two. I mean, that's an amazing accomplishment. And to grow a nuclear program from nothing in about a decade, another fantastic accomplishment. So UAE is different. So I think that if you look at certain countries where the stability is there, the vision is there, the ability to implement is there, I don't have any concerns but nuclear needs stability. Nuclear needs political long-term ability to implement. And in countries that don't have that, it's not a good idea. In countries that do have it, I think it's a very, very acceptable option.
It's interesting, though. So does this become the gold standard? And are you candidly comfortable with Russia, which is very good at atomic technology, obviously, playing a key role in Egypt and Turkey, two of the most populated countries in the region?
Well, obviously, there's a lot of controversy around Russia's participation in anything right now. But I think after all this is over, people will come back to the fact that Russia is an expert in nuclear technology and has successfully, and not a lot of suppliers have done it, successfully built nuclear facilities in other countries. And that is not that common. There aren't that many who've done it. They just finished one in Bangladesh that's operating quite well. So, whether you're comfortable with it or not, this goes beyond my pay grade. But as far as from a technical standpoint, I'm certainly comfortable with that.
Okay, Mohamed?
Yeah, if I may, John, if I may take you to yesterday at the opening remark of His Excellency Mohamed Al. He mentioned the pace of changes is fast, the volatility is high, and what we discussed 4 months ago at COP26 of energy sustainability dramatically changed in the last few weeks to energy security. You've seen the change of agendas, dramatic. Her Excellency mentioned, to do this, we have to be serious. Climate change is serious, and we need serious solutions. And the UAE in 2006, and His Highness the leadership Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, came up with that model, says, we need an energy plan that is secure, that's sustainable. To be able to deliver a nuclear industry from scratch for a new country, it takes a decade. Actually, for other countries, even more. It took us a decade to develop that. Today, we are enjoying a basket portfolio, a very mixed portfolio. We didn't have nuclear, we have nuclear, we have renewable, we have also the fossil fuel that we will use in a very balanced manner. So prices of volatility of oil, we have resiliency of a nuclear on the back. We have 25% of electricity in 2025 from nuclear. And that will avoid us, by the way, emitting around 22 tons of carbon annual basis. That's a huge amount of carbon emission avoidance. And this is only the beginning. So if I may take a minute here to talk about what's possible. We've done a nuclear program in a decade. The opportunities are huge. Mr. Magwood mentioned the futuristic reactors, the SMRs. We are also engaged in that discussion, and we have the knowledge and expertise, young boys and girls who are qualified. They're schooling in the US, in Korea, and very qualified to be part of this industry. We can tap into that industry. UAE today, one of the 33 countries in the world using nuclear technology for civilian purposes to make electricity. So that puts us on the map to be engaged in international investment of nuclear industry, to be working in SMR, clean hydrogen. So the sky's the limit when it comes to opportunities, because we've done a program in 10 years, and the UAE's leadership is very ambitious. We always want to be at the head of the curve, to be number one. And having this platform today, we are positioned to go for the next steps of success.
Okay, to wrap, I'm going to go to Mohamed quickly and then give it the last word to Mariam, and we have just under 2 minutes. So I just want to get a quick reaction. You were at CERAWeek, and then I saw you at COP26. Boy, has the conversation changed, right? It's all about energy security on your end. And Mariam, what influence will this have on decision-making at COP27 and 28? Just very quickly, as we have 1.5 minutes.
So if I may summarize, John, as a clean energy powerhouse from the nuclear energy for the country has been built. It's operational. I'm very proud to say that. Our mission on securing a sustainable, secure electricity, it's been there. And our acceleration of our mission to net zero to 2050, we are on the right track. And we are accelerating through this nuclear powerhouse to be able to achieve that.
Okay, very good. But that was the language at CERAWeek as well? You were saying to me at CERAWeek, the language changed completely, right?
Yeah, so UAE managed to balance between energy security and sustainability in a very resilient and consistent manner. As Magwood mentioned, to be able to have a nuclear program of this scale and magnitude, you need to have the right leadership, the vision, and stability for decades to be able to do this right. And we've done it right so far, and the future is ahead of us.
Good. Mariam?
I think the biggest reality check we've had is that we are not ready yet to move away from hydrocarbons. At COP26, it was clean, renewable, no hydrocarbons. I think this has been now changed, that we understand that this is going to take time. We are still very heavily dependent on hydrocarbons, but we need to take the responsible approach. Even on the hydrocarbon sector, we need to decarbonize as much as possible, but we must understand that we have to accelerate our efforts, but we're still very reliant on the current systems.
Good. One thing we couldn't, because of time, is get into is ADNOC's the biggest customer of ENIC, right? So it helps lower its low carbon footprint now as we speak, and it unlocks a lot of lending because of the green technology that's into place.
If I may, that's a great.
You're not going to get me in trouble going too long, are you?
Yeah, I would take the blame for it. So the nuclear industry also enables the industry to grow through access of roughly around $54 trillion of green financing. And ADNOC today, they buy a lot of the nuclear technology, nuclear clean electricity that's enabled them to be able to export the least carbon barrel of oil. And that's something also great for the UAE, gives it a competitive edge in the industries.
Great, it's a pleasure.
Just to show the responsibility of the UAE, since 1st of January this year, ADNOC is now running purely on clean and renewable energy. Okay, so just to show the decarbonization.
With nuclear in that package, right, is what you're saying. Very good. Mohamed Al Hammadi, Mariam Almheiri, and Bill Dagwood. Thanks a lot for playing the game. We got it done about 1 minute over, but not bad. Yeah, it was good. Nice round of applause for the three of them. Thank you very, very much.